Hi, friends, and welcome to the Out of OCD podcast, your source for understanding and managing obsessive compulsive disorder. This podcast explores the realities of OCD, personal stories, treatment approaches, and tips for breaking free from those often debilitating intrusive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. I'm your host, Dr. Toy Hirschman, not a therapist, but someone who has also lived with severe OCD and co-occurring disorders. Please join me for real stories, pro tips, and a sometimes humorous look at busting through OCD. Let's get started kicking OCD out of our lives for good. Hi, friends. I want to talk to you today about something that it's a term I really didn't even know until recently, but something that I absolutely had, and something that's more common than I even realized. I'm talking about postpartum OCD. There's been an increase, thankfully, in awareness about postpartum depression, but moms who experience postpartum OCD generally suffer in silence because they don't want to talk about their experiences because they're ashamed of their thoughts. Postpartum OCD happens after childbirth and is characterized, of course, by obsessive, repetitive, unwanted, distressing, horrible, terrible thoughts, and is often accompanied by the compulsions or the repetitive behaviors where you're using these compulsions to try to get rid of these thoughts or feel some kind of relief from them. And with postpartum OCD, intrusive thoughts can take on all kinds of forms, but usually revolve around a new mom's ability to care for her child. The important thing to note is that these thoughts are not reflective of a new mom's true beliefs and are highly, highly distressing. But the reason that new moms don't seek out help for this is because these thoughts might not look so great to a healthcare provider that doesn't understand OCD, and many don't. So some of the common intrusive thoughts in postpartum OCD, what if something bad happens to my child? What if my child gets hurt? What if I accidentally hurt my child? You might have vivid mental images of something horrible happening to your baby or thoughts about accidentally poisoning your child. And if you have OCD, this list can get quite long. There's an important distinction here, though. It's important to remember that many, 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 or probably most mothers experience these thoughts. But the difference is that moms that do not have OCD experience these thoughts and go like, that was a terrible thought. And then they move on. If you have OCD, the thought gets stuck and then it's on repeat. And then you start doing the compulsions to try to relieve that thought and that tension and anxiety caused by the thought. Some common compulsions in postpartum OCD: repeatedly checking on your baby at night. This was my go-to. And when I say repeatedly checking, I don't mean like 1 or 2 times. I mean like 100 times. At one point, I installed cameras all over the house, including above their beds, so that I could count breaths. And when I was home, I would be doing this, in person. And you can imagine that got pretty unsustainable pretty quickly. Repeating prayers or statements to quote unquote protect the child, even though with OCD, you're logical, this doesn't work, but you do it anyway because the OCD gremlin has you. This was another one of my go-to things that I did. Some women, moms, will avoid being alone with the baby or obsessively seek reassurance about parenting skills from a partner or from friends. And again, you can see how repeatedly doing these things just can get so debilitating, and you're already tired because you're a new mom. Some of the impacts of postpartum OCD, again, instead of protecting your child, these compulsions, these repetitive thoughts, these compulsions are just leading to your own mental and physical exhaustion. And as a new mom, you're already running on fumes without OCD's lovely help. The fact that you're already exhausted, both mentally and physically, because you're a new mom, may also be one of the reasons OCD finds its way into your life or increases in strength during this vulnerable time. OCD loves to do this, right? And if you know you have OCD already, OCD just loves this. So first, you're stressed because you're a new mom. You're tired. You're stressed. You're probably not eating well. All of those things. So that makes OCD perk up its ears, right? And then at the same time, you now have this amazing bundle of joy that you care about more than you care about anything in the world, any other human in the world. And now OCD is like, well, boy, I've got you now. I have you now because I found something that could be a source of your greatest fear combined with you're already stressed. So OCD is going to take that hot button and just mash on it until it drives you crazy. That's what OCD loves to do. What you need to remember is that there isn't anything wrong with you. You're not horrible. You're an amazing person. It's just OCD. Okay? And if you are experiencing this and an increase in OCD symptoms or dealing with OCD for the first time after childbirth, you are absolutely not alone. It's estimated that 1 to 7% of new moms have postpartum OCD. That seems like a low number on face value, but if you consider that that means possibly 7 out of the next 100 moms you meet have experienced something that you're experiencing, that's a lot of moms. All right? So just remember that. You are not alone. And I'm going to give you some resources too, so you can find your tribe at the end of the podcast. So some of the challenges of diagnosis. Unfortunately, postpartum OCD can be misdiagnosed as postpartum depression or other conditions, especially if you're not familiar or your doctor's not familiar with OCD symptoms. OCD can make you tired, steal your energy and quality time from you and your child, and sometimes that can be mistaken as postpartum depression. Make sure that you are armed with the right information before you start talking to your child's pediatrician or your OBGYN about these things, because likely they don't have experience with OCD and you could end up being misdiagnosed. My personal experience, my OCD, my whole, up until I was 32, was always about protecting myself and my family. It still is. However, when the fears centered on my baby, my most precious person in the world, my most precious people in the world, it intensified dramatically. And again, like that OCD gremlin found my hot button and just kept pressing it. Here's the thing. Because our brains are wired in a way that makes OCD possible, it doesn't mean that you're going to act on these thoughts. You won't. The thoughts are terrifying to you and you don't want these thoughts. It's just your OCD. When it comes to discussing your symptoms with healthcare providers, I'm gonna err on the side of caution. Unless you know that your OBGYN or your pediatrician understands OCD, it might be better to seek first a diagnosis or a therapist specializing in OCD. And again, I think I say this on almost all of the podcasts. Look for professionals who mention exposure and response prevention, or ERP, in their practice. That's the gold standard. And if you meet with a therapist, even if that therapist says, I know what you have OCD, but does not do exposure and response prevention, get out of there, because that person is not going to help you. I will link in the show notes some support resources. The International OCD Foundation has a really great fact sheet on postpartum and perinatal OCD. I'll link that. And then I'll also link the International OCD's support groups. They have, I wish I had known about these. They have a lot of support groups for moms with postpartum, for moms with OCD. They have every category you can think of. There is an online and in-person support group if you live in a more metropolitan area of the world than I do. So I'll link that. What's really great about the online support groups, I'm in one, I've been in several different ones, is that it's just that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm not alone, and you will be met with the warmest group of people that can meet you right where you are and say, I've been in your shoes, or I'm currently standing in your shoes. And it's just great to be able to connect and know that you're not alone, and that this is not something that's completely foreign or weird. This is really common. So I just encourage you to, check out the resources, find the support you need, reach out to me, whatever you need to help you get through this so that you can really enjoy your time as a parent. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you and love you all. Bye.